What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering all the four major sports leagues, whether it be NFL, NHL, NBA, or MLB. We're here to talk about it, games, highlight news, all that fun stuff. I'm Jake. That's Nick. And in today's episode, pretty much contenders or pretenders who will put up or shut up. There's a lot of interesting teams, and with free agency over, the draft done now, we're kind of just waiting until training camp. It's time to give an outside look of what teams will live up to the contender hype or be like maybe a surprise contender, or what teams are just going to be pretenders and show they were never really made for the big moments. Nick, I'm excited because I think there's many teams we could include, and it's going to be interesting how we go about it because there's a couple different ways people can look at it, contenders for the playoffs or just the Super Bowl. So I'm curious, to get your thoughts on some of these teams. But first, in the AFC East, I'll include two, or could include three, but I'll just say this right off the bat. For me, a team like the New York Jets is just a pretender. I can't believe it until I see it with this team. And it's kind of the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Just he's all this weird stuff off the field has just, given me, I can't trust the Jets, a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 10 years, to, actually do anything until I see it on the field. Because the off the field paper can look good. Rodgers, Wilson, adding Hassan Reddick if that contract gets figured out. But I gotta believe it. I gotta see it first before I believe it, because as of right now, I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. The threshold I'm kind of holding to who I consider a pretender versus contender is a team that not only is going to make the playoffs, because sometimes we see a fluke team make the playoffs, but a team I think will make it to the playoffs and they could very well put in a deep run, go to the divisional conference championship or even the Super Bowl. And there's obvious contenders that we probably won't talk about much, the Chiefs, who just because they have Patrick Mahomes and they have added a few weapons for him this year that are going to improve over last year. They're obvious contenders, but there's some teams that it's kind of hard to find where they stand. And I'm with you with the Jets. I see them as a team who could get in as a wild card, but I don't see them winning a game in the playoffs. So I consider that being a pretender.
And then the next team in the AFC East we'll talk about, the Dolphins. I think they won 11 games last year, got bounced to the wild card very quickly. For me, it's a team that I also throw in pretender just because they're a team that can get to the wild card, but they've shown nothing more than to be able to do that. And I believe teams might get some more film on Tua and the guys. Their offense might be figured out more. You had Raheem Mostert career year, Tyreek Hill, another great season. Jalen Waddle, great season. Tua, arguably his best season, but all for nothing. So, how much can these guys really get better and elevate in the playoffs until I believe it and they can, win some tough games on the road or even at home, the big ones against Buffalo last week of the season. This team just can't win the big ones. They can, put up a great 70 points on the Broncos, but they can't, beat the good teams when it really matters most. So for me, they're a pretender.
Yep. Same here. Same here for a lot of the same reasons. I think the position that holds them back the most is quarterback. And, I don't like to be a hater, but I think we saw Tua's ceiling last year. And I know Tyreek was talking about how he wants to get 2,000 yards and everything. And he very well might if, Tua throws him the ball 20 times a game. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tyreek was on pace before he got hurt last year. Hamstring. He was on pace for 2,000. So we could see something cool like that. But when it comes to the playoffs, I just don't see Tua as a guy who's going to, step up and be a playoff performer over everything, because the great quarterbacks always play much, much better in the playoffs, and I just can't see him doing that. And when you need that out of your quarterback more so than any other position, I have to call them a pretender. I don't think, even if they get a home playoff game, even if they sneak away with a division, I think a team like Houston or even Jacksonville could, go to Miami and beat them.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last team in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. If you want to talk about, contender for divisional championship game, Buffalo's always been there. It's just a matter of can they get over the hump? And, losing Diggs, is going to hurt them in some capacity, like we talked about in their offseason. But, there's also, room for growth for a lot of these guys. Would I say contender to win the Super Bowl this season? Probably not. But just when you have Josh Allen, I still believe in this team. And I still, consider them. They're going to be at the final fight no matter what, really. If you know what I'm saying, they'll be there at the end, with the final 8, final 4 teams. Just can they get over that hump? That's the one question mark. But I would still put them, they're going to be contending, if someone could just beat the Chiefs, maybe that's their path to the Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, I would put them as probably like my last team in the AFC as like a real contender, but I'm going to give Josh Allen his respect and throw them in contender still.
Okay. You're a little more confident in them than me. I still, definitely see what you mean. Just having Josh Allen is going to put you in that upper plethora of teams that could potentially win the Super Bowl. But with the, the pieces they lost this year and then comparing it to the pieces they gained, trying to, even it out, like I still think they're in the negative when it comes to, they lost more than they gained this offseason. And just going over the other AFC teams that would be competing with them, I struggle to say that they would get to the AFC Championship, which makes it hard for me to say they're a contender. Maybe if we have to, put one in for every division, then it would by far be the Buffalo Bills for me. But,
well, I would say, yeah, I'm not going by one per division or anything.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, if there's 8
in that
teams,
contenders tier, because they've been there at the end of games. If Tyler Bass makes that field goal, they're probably going to the championship game, and I think winning that game against Baltimore. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, but the Chiefs just find a way to close these games out. So I'm not going to take points off for losing to the Chiefs because at the end of the day, everyone could be a contender if the Chiefs weren't there. Right. So I would just, I want to give them the respect. They still have the second best quarterback in the league. And I agree they did lose Diggs, but I didn't really worry about their defensive pieces. They lost Jordan Poyer really slowed down this past season. And just they got rid of a lot of older guys, which may hurt, some leadership, but I think they'll just be faster on the field. And I just think, they still did their best with what they could to, get Keon Coleman, get some weapons like Curtis Samuel just to help minimize the loss of Diggs.
Another thing I read about with the Bills, though, is I have really started to question Sean McDermott in playoff games. I question, his late game calling. I know he's, the defensive guy more so. And I just question the defense he calls, and it seems like, he's put them in bad position.
I think everyone questions their defense called against Andy Reid. I'm not really going to put that on Sean McDermott because, frankly, Andy Reid's the best coach in the league right now. He's on the Mount Rushmore. People have doubts about Kyle Shanahan because he can't beat Andy Reid. It's kind of just, one of those things where if the Chiefs didn't exist, we could be looking at Bills, Niners, Super Bowl every year or these past couple seasons. So it's just kind of, at the end of the day, I can't hold it against him too much just because he's losing to the best in clutch situations and Mahomes is just making some magical plays. But I do agree, there is some things, maybe in the regular season more so, but just the way that group turned last season around when they started off like 5-5 and finishing 11-6 or whatever it was. That team was on a roll. So I just want to give some credit to Buffalo because Sean McDermott still coaches consistently since Josh Allen arrived 10+ regular season. I think he averages like 11 wins. So I can't, deduct him too much. I still think he's a top 7 head coach in this league.
Okay. I think where I put the Bills is you have them as your last contender. I have them literally one spot below where they're the top.
Yeah. That's fine. Next team we'll move a division where For me, there's only one contender in this tier, AFC West, and is the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's kind of obvious. It's the favorite, not even a contender, the favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as good as the Chargers, can be with Jim Harbaugh, I don't see them.
I think they're a contender, if we were doing this in separate tiers, contender to make the playoffs. But they're not going to the Super Bowl first year. It's just can't happen realistically or make a deep run, I don't think.
The AFC West we can kind of go through quick because it's pretty much just
Raiders, and whatever. Next division, AFC North, arguably a team with 4, playoff teams. The Ravens, I don't know. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year, but given you still have Lamar, you still have a great defense, you have Zay Flowers entering his second year, Mark Andrews come back healthy. If they add Derrick Henry, if someone on this team can step up, this team was really close last year to making the Super Bowl. Obviously, I have to put them in contender.
This might be the first set disagreement because I do not consider the Ravens contenders this year, and I know they got Derrick Henry. I know they have Lamar.
Ravens fans are going to click that.
Go ahead. I'm still confident in Joe Burrow to kind of come back, bounce back, and lead that division. And I might be higher on the Steelers than a lot of people because I think the Steelers are going to be good this year. I'm not considering them, AFC Championship, Super Bowl, beating the Chiefs at Kansas City type. But I think the Steelers are going to be pretty good. The Browns are kind of with Deshaun there and how, bad he's been. They did, sign Jameis Winston. So if Deshaun Watson plays like shit the first 3 weeks, maybe they'll let Jameis go in and just throw it all over the yard for 400 yards, 4 picks, 5 TDs. That'd be cool to watch. But
I don't know. Not including the Ravens is a little crazy, just with the moves they made. I think they do take a step back regular season-wise just because it's so hard to win 13 games, every season. But this team was the 1 seed last year, hosted the championship game. I think Derrick Henry, they're going to be there at the end, pending any injuries. I'd say this team is definitely one of the 4 best teams in the AFC. And, similar to like I said with the Bills, if someone can knock off the Chiefs, I think their shots increase dramatically. But, we'll see. Only time will tell.
When we talk about, knocking off the Chiefs, I trust the Bengals more to do that just because Joe Burrow. That's the main reason why I have the Bengals kind of over the Chiefs in that aspect.
Bengals are in my contenders too. Obviously, Joe Burrow coming back, Jamar Chase, one of the best. That defense isn't always great, but for whatever reason, they always give Patrick Mahomes trouble. So that's why you got to throw them in contender. And I would say the Steelers are just like a team that can make the wild card, but I'm not ready to throw them in like Super Bowl contender or anything. I think we. All right, what are you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna throw in just with the Steelers. I think the Steelers could be a surprise, make the wild card and maybe have an upset win, just because of how good their defense will be. That's the only thing. That's their ceiling is
That's kind of what they've been though.
Right.
They rely on their defense a lot, win 9-10 regular season games, and then you hope to go into a playoff game. Recently, though, it hasn't worked out well because they've gotten smoked by the Chiefs or Bills, kind of whoever's walked into who's ever stadium they walked into. But yeah, maybe if that defense stays healthy and the offense can just be better, because I will give them credit. In these playoff games, they were starting Ben Roethlisberger on his last leg, and who was it last year? Mason Rudolph.
Rudolph.
If Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, mainly Russell Wilson, I think, if he can just help that offense become a little bit better, then yeah, it's definitely more likely that they could pull off an upset win and move to the divisional round. And then the last team I want to throw in here in the AFC conference is a sleeper team. Just to watch out, dark horse, or actually 2 teams from the AFC South, because we didn't mention the Texans yet. Actually, the AFC South is interesting.
The Texans were one of my other teams that I feel like
I put contender. I still think they may not click right away like everyone's anticipating to, but D'Amico Ryan's leading the way. CJ Stroud, adding Diggs, Tank Dell come back, Nico Collins. That wide receiver trio is deadly. Dalton Schultz and that improved defense, adding Daniil Hunter. Boy, that team's going to be scary. I think they're a contender, obviously, entering year 2. They're definitely a team that also could, give the Chiefs a run for money, and a team that arguably has the second best team in the AFC. A lot of people said this offseason. And then 2 teams I just want to give a shout out to are the Colts and Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are kind of being overlooked after kind of, the injuries that piled up last year that caused them to miss the playoffs after starting off 8-3 and being the 1 seed. Just want to say, watch out, because if Trevor Lawrence, can get some protection and his receivers aren't dropping everything, that team could just be improved alone based off of that.
Okay. So are you considering the Colts contenders too? Is that what you're saying?
Colts are my other dark horse pick. I made a little separate category, dark horse picks, where Shane Steichen, first year, mainly with Gardner Minshew, leads them to 9-8. If Anthony Richardson can step in and improve from what was a great start to his rookie season, you have Michael Pittman, Josh Downs going into a second year, and up-and-coming defense. I don't mind this team as a dark horse pick to, be like last year's Texans, where they win like 11 games, win a wild card game and, move to the divisional round. It would not be crazy. I don't think they're contenders for the Super Bowl quite yet, obviously, but it's a dark horse sleeper team.
Okay. I more so think that with the Jaguars, just because I trust Trevor Lawrence a little bit. Or I trust Trevor Lawrence right now more than Anthony Richardson. Sorry. Yeah. Just because I've seen more of Trevor Lawrence. I definitely think the talent's all there with the Colts, but I think the Jaguars or the Colts are definitely 2 teams who could win a playoff game. Like, that's kind of where I have them sitting at, is win, a wild card game. The Texans, I think, are the real contenders in that division. I think if everybody,
they're top dogs for sure.
They could go to the AFC Championship, I think, and probably compete.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And then the next, we'll move to the NFC now, where I think it's a lot more easier for me. I'll just say that. For me, and I'm expecting you as well, the Niners are still my team that's, the favorite to come out. I'm going to throw them in contender when they're steps away from winning the Super Bowl. I still have that question mark of how many times can you keep climbing this mountain of going back, making a deep run every year, and then losing. But until proven otherwise, Kyle Shanahan is still arguably the second best coach in this league. He knows how to coach a team, and they're still one of the best rosters, so they're still a contender for me.
Okay. I have the Niners up there. I also have the Eagles up there. I know.
Yeah, you're having that Eagles. I wanted to talk about, I'm kind of going in order from the playoff season last year. The 2 seed Dallas Cowboys, I think we both have the same answer on this. Pretender. Yeah, they got the definition of the biggest pretender. Dallas, I picked you guys last year to win the Super Bowl, and you lost in the wild card round. So I am not sold on Dallas anymore until they have to prove me otherwise. I think this is Mike McCarthy's last season, in the last season of Dak, CD, and Micah together. What a disaster. But I also want to talk about, I think the Lions are also a contender. I think they improved their defense where they needed to. So they're obviously going to be right back there. They had a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game, so they could be right back there. And if these adjustments help, and Dan Campbell, continues to coach the way he does and sticks to it, and I still think this team can get really far.
Yep, I got the Lions from the NFC East. I don't think I have any teams, and same for the NFC South. I don't know if you do. I don't know if you have like the Bucks.
I was going to say the Bucks. It may sound harsh, but I think they're pretender. I think last year, they caught people off guard. They caught teams off guard. Now they lose their offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, who I me. I've been preaching the Carolina Panthers. So I think that's a huge loss. And I think they had a career season, but even then they only won 9 games. And they smoked the Eagles, credit to them, and put up a good fight against the Lions. But at the end of the day, the film's out on Baker now. People are going to adjust to him this offseason. They aren't going to catch him by surprise. So I think the Buccaneers will. I don't think they're near Super Bowl because they didn't really improve that team this much this offseason. They're kind of just running it back.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
Them and the Falcons might be my two like win a playoff game teams, but they're not like.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the Falcons in just a wild card team. Kirk has one playoff win in his career, so I need to, see more playoff wins before I believe they're actually a real contender. So I'll fold them in as, pretender until, I have to see otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But my other contender I have is the Green Bay Packers. I think they're gonna take that next step after, almost making it to the championship game last year. I think getting another year older will help this team because they were the youngest team to make the playoffs. They did some small piece around the edges, losing Aaron Jones, adding Josh Jacobs. So, they're kind of just revamping around the edges, but Matt LaFleur will have this team ready. This defense, getting a new DC will only help because Joe Barry, is famous for sabotaging this team when it mattered most. So, gotta give the Packers some credit. I mean, they're my Super Bowl pick right now, so I'm obviously gonna throw them in contender.
Okay, we have almost all the same teams. I believe we got the two top teams in my opinion, and Niners, Eagles. I did have the Packers in there as well. I have one. If we're doing a dark horse team, my dark horse team is probably out of the NFC. I think the Rams can be really, really good and make like a deep run, and potentially come out of the NFC if everything falls their way. I still think the Eagles are probably my pick, but if I were to pick a team that would surprise everybody and maybe go to the NFC Championship, it would probably be the Rams. I think they proved they can get there, obviously with their Super Bowl run. And if Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Matt Stafford are healthy, who knows what that offense can do with those two, because that's one of the best wide receiver duos in the league if both healthy and everything's rolling. I know they lost Aaron Donald, so that's like a huge hit defensively, but maybe it'll make other guys step up, and maybe that defense will become, more unified. Everybody's got to step up and fill the role of, what Aaron Donald did. Excuse me. So
Yeah.
I would say the Rams are my dark horse pick team.
My biggest dark horse, I didn't really have one in the NFC because I think it's more you can tell who the top teams are and who aren't. I would say my biggest dark horse was the Colts in the AFC to make a deep run. Just like I said, Shane Steichen, year one was already really impressive, and Anthony Richardson looked so good before the injury, and now year two, he kind of got like a Drake May, JJ McCarthy type year at the end of it, where he just got to learn, throughout the whole season when he was on the sidelines. So it'll be better for that, I believe, and if he can just stay healthy, that'll be the biggest question mark. But even when he didn't, Shane Steichen's system is really easy. Just kind of plug in, play, and you'll put up some good numbers. Michael Pittman had a career season, fantasy monster for my team. This isn't fantasy, but Shane Steichen knows what he's doing. And this team was playing the Texans for the final spot, and it came down to like the final play of the game. So I'm really high on the Colts and what they can do. But with that being said, yeah. Overall, we had some agreements, some disagreements. Probably the biggest one will be the Ravens. But, at the end of the day, all right, you got to respect it. You got to have some hot takes because the Ravens could very well, not pan out and win 9 games. But I'm still going to ride high with them. Maybe it's the Baltimore blood in me from, some family members, cheering them on.
Yeah.
But,
it could be. I respect the loyalty if that's what it is.
Overall, though, some similar, some, not. But with all the moves pretty much made and over, we know what the rosters are. So it's kind of just predicting from here and looking back on these to see if we're geniuses or idiots. And it'll probably be the latter. With that being said, as always, let us know in the comments what you guys agree and disagree with in our contenders, pretenders. Do we miss anyone? Let us know. But as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, because we're here uploading Monday through Friday, covering all NFL topics. But we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.